Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. An hour later tonight, because of special coverage of an event down in Madison on Civic Media, but glad you could be with us. I am Chad Holmes along with Jeff Gress, and Coach, we're getting closer and closer to the end of the year.
Yeah.
After tonight, we only have two more shows.
It's tough time of year as you keep coming in. Your notes get shorter, less teams to be able to focus on just because of the way things are going down. And snow melts, which is snow melting is a good thing.
But fortunately, I know you always have a big, thick list of topics to talk about, and we'll never get through those. I mean, we could have no games to talk about. I think we could get through a couple of hours just talking about what's on your list of topics to discuss. But not only talk about some games, talk about maybe something on his list. We got a couple of special guests tonight. Coming up at about 25 after the hour, we'll be joined by the head boys basketball coach of the Marshfield Tigers, Chris Fischer. And what a run they've had the last number of years, haven't they?
Well, and I like hearing about small beginnings. I totally forgot, like at the tail end of my coaching time at Newman, he was on the bench coaching with Coach Schmidt over at Stratford, because he mentioned that and I'm like, that was him. I forgot about that. That's kind of cool where you start your roots and you build something in, and doing an outstanding job at Marshfield.
And I'm guessing you'll discuss that.
We could bring that up.
But boy, they had a big win against Stevens Point. We'll discuss here in just a moment, and they're getting set for a sectional semifinals. They try to work their way to state. I remember the years where Marshfield would make it to state on the girls' side, but the boys now have an opportunity, and we'll talk about that with Coach Chris Fischer. Another team that is still playing is Wausau East, and we're going to have a student-athlete guest from the Wausau East Lumberjacks, as again, they earn a regional final, and they'll be playing New Richmond in a sectional semifinal coming up, and multi-sport athlete Charlie Cayley. And I'm looking forward to Charlie coming in because he's a big guy.
Yeah,
he's going to make us look
we're going to be small. Well, I always look small, so it doesn't matter to me, but he's going to make us all a little bit less than we are.
But we'll have Charlie Cayley coming up to start off hour number 2 as well. So plenty to talk about, and great guests coming up here on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. But since we have a coach guest coming up from the boys' side, I thought we'd start with the regionals, with the high school boys basketball tournament, and look ahead as well towards the sectionals. But Division I, starting off on Friday of last week, it was the regional semifinals. Game that I saw, the number 6 seed Wausau West Warriors and the number 11 seeded DC Everest Evergreens. And we talked a lot about this matchup last week. DC Everest had won twice during the regular season. It was a short road trip. And even I thought the fact that Wausau West was playing hockey that afternoon could take away a little bit of the home court, because there'll be folks down in the Madison area that may or may not get back for that game on Friday night, like myself, having to hurry back to get to that game. But, boy, Wausau West played a good game. They came out and they shot the ball so well, 11 of 21 from three-point range, and beat the Evergreens by a score of 61-45. Griffin Lang had 17 points. Bennett Matson, 16. Miles Walvogel hit 4 3-pointers, had 12 points in that game. Casey Studeman had 20 points for Everest. But 3-point field goals, Everest, usually so good at it, would think that would be an edge for the Evergreens in that game. As I said, 11 of 21 for West, 4 of 18 for DC Everest, and a really impressive performance by West.
Well, and you got to tip your hats to him. Coach Drake for DC Everest was on the show the previous Wednesday talking about that game and the importance of it and what he expected to see out of West. And I'm not surprised that Everest didn't shoot that well. I mean, West, their defense it's stingy, it's aggressive. They're hanging on you. They're just always lingering, which is a sign of a good defense and a team that's defensive minded. And then for West, as I hear, you're doing the radio, you rushed on. You had no even pregame. You got to go. I hope people appreciate that.
I was discombobulated when I went on the air, and then real fast off a little bit of a radio story. I get this text from a guy in Madison at our corporate headquarters, and there was an issue with Tom Weaver's broadcast, and I'm in the marathon game, and I'm trying to deal with that in the first break and trying to get my stuff together. And when the game started, I felt almost good because I could worry about that. But it was craziness. It was nuts. But
you could tell your focus shifted to what was at hand with watching the game and calling the game. But the one thing when you got into the game was just the outside shots, the amount that they were hitting. So for West, what I'm saying is it's a really tough combination to defend because you know what you're going to get out of them defensively. And when that shot's falling, they put both sides of the ball together, and it just becomes tough. And it showed, Evers, unfortunately, a good team had a good run. I thought the second half of the year where they started to hit their stride and playing some good basketball and up their ante in the conference and slid up the rankings there within their conference rivalries. Just struggled that night to hit the ball well. It's still a good basketball team, still a lot of weapons, but obviously for West to get that big time double digit win was a big deal in their own home court.
And also Friday night in that same bracket in Division I, Sectional 1, Stevens Point, number 7 seed. Not an easy first-round matchup against number 10 seeded Hudson, but the Panthers played exceptionally well, defeating Hudson 67-45. Jaden Awi had a big night, 22 points. Grant Chardonnay, 17 for Stevens Point. But that Awi, again, we'll talk about the game Saturday coming up, but he really, for coming in the middle of the year, he's really built nicely, hasn't he? I mean, he came in, became a factor, and then has become a bigger and bigger factor as the season went on.
It's hard, I think, for teams to. Sometimes teams go. This is an obvious statement. Teams go one of two ways. You either gel and it's working, or you're not gelling, and then you're trying to solve the problems. And sometimes you play catch up that way, and you don't get caught up till your season's over, unfortunately. So I give the coaching staff, the players, credit for making that work, because it's not always easy for players to always just be like, hey, we just want the scoreboard at the end, because you've had roles. Now your roles shift when another guy comes in, especially a guy that can score some more points, play both ends of the floor. It's probably a big weapon in the middle, so somebody got, taking other people's playing time, and you have to have all the buy-in from everybody. And so that's a sign of a good basketball team too. And I thought, Awi came in and gave them a lift, propelled them to be a stronger team, and did, when I didn't see games per se, but seeing the highlights, you could tell the athleticism on the floor that he had.
When I saw him, he was a very impressive athlete, and he was a really good basketball player too. I mean, he had some good finishes in the game against West.
And that's what I thought was always impressive about him, even at a younger age, was the footwork was there, the athleticism was there, and he was only going to get bigger, stronger, faster. So be interested to see if he goes forward, where he goes and what he does and what he can continue to do in his basketball career.
So with that win, Stevens Point moved on to face the winner of the game between number 2 seeded Marshfield and number 15 Appleton East. And Marshfield took care of business in that one, 53-38. Landon Lee, 19 points. Chris Pohl, 18. Brooks Hinson, 10. Let's jump right into the Stevens Point Marshfield game, because obviously that was expected, beating the number 15 seed. And I guess real quickly, the balance for Marshfield. Again, it seems like this year, and we'll talk about this with the coach coming up, different guys would step up and lead scoring. I mean, Landon Lee with 19 in that game, Pohl with 18. And you think of Brooks Hinson, the guy who's on the cover of the yearbook. You expect him to always be the star, but boy, he fits in nicely. He seems to know what they need any particular night as well.
And I think that's the signs of a good point guard. And not to say that Lee's not the point guard sometimes too, because he brings it up plenty.
Right.
But the thing that always impresses me when I watch the game, or even hear people talk about Marshfield Tigers as a basketball team, is just the stymied backcourt that they have. Those guys they're poised, they pass, both of them can shoot, they know how to dish the ball, and I think that's a sign of a team when you have one of your best players, who everybody looks to defend, looks to shut down. Not that Marshfield doesn't have a handful of good players or best players on a given night, and he can show up in so many roles. Am I going to be the guy that shuts down my guy tonight and I can just distribute the ball? Am I going to have to hit some outside shots for you? Well, he just knows it to a T because of the always, and that's what you want out of that floor general. And I think him and Lee, watching those two play together, complement each other really well, as do the big guys that they have in Pohl and Ramberg. And there's a couple other unsung heroes in that rotation that they have. And those kids just really do a nice job. And it shows up in the run they're making right now, but Spash didn't make anything easy, which you're probably about to share.
I know it. I mean, going into it, that had to be a tough matchup. For actually, you could say for both teams, because obviously Marshfield was able to take care of business twice against Stevens Point. But boy, you knew how good Stevens Point is. You knew they would be better with more games under their belt with the group that they had, and to beat a good team. And again, it's an old cliche, but I think there's some truth to it as well. And Marshfield and Spash met on Saturday night, and I think it's not surprising it turned into a game that went right down to the nut. But in the end, Marshfield was able to win it by a score of 57-56. Chris Pohl again, 19 points. Valen Ramberg, 15. Landon Lee, 10. Hinson didn't even get double figures. He had 8 points in the game. For Stevens Point, Jaden Awi had 15. Sivan Dinga had 14. And Shadid only had 7 in that game. I mean, again, the two kids that maybe you would expect to lift in that situation, both were held down. And I think that says a lot about coaching and defense and everything that goes into a third matchup between good basketball teams.
Well, and it's so vital sometimes for players, coaches, to have that inserted into their program that they can play both sides of the basket, and Marshfield does that. It shows up in the how difficult they make buckets to come for the other team when you're watching them play. And I thought that Spash, it's a tough gig. You've already lost twice. You got to go back and take this game on their home floor. It's the regional final. You know this is a big game to get through. Comes down to the 1 point at the end, but for Marshfield, they pushed through. They finished that off. They got the job done, and that's why these games are fun to watch. That's why high school basketball, in my opinion, is a big deal. Is that you're just showcasing what you can do together with your buddies on the floor, and can you handle those pressure situations that matter most when people can tense up and throw the ball away or miss a shot. And for Marshfield to hold true on their home court was a big win for the regional final.
So they move on to a sectional semifinal Thursday night, taking on third-seeded Eau Claire Memorial. And these teams met very late in the regular season, and it was a dominant performance by Marshfield. And again, sometimes you wonder, obviously Marshfield played very well that night, and Eau Claire Memorial likely did not play all that well. But what's your take in a game like that where one team had pretty much dominated the other in the regular season, late in the regular season?
Well, it's interesting because sometimes you can use, if you're the coach that dominated, you're going to use that as some poster board material to talk about and say, look, this is what we did well on. You're also going to keep your team understanding that this is the playoffs. They're going to come to play. They're on their last lifeline just like we are if we don't win the game. So you're going to have your team poised with trying to take any of the stress and the burden of the anxiety of that game off and understand the importance of it. It's going to come down to who, always less turnovers, more free throws made is a big deal, as much as that you show up for that game and you finish it off. Because I think sometimes that sectional final one's a lot of fun because you've gotten to that point, you can breathe if you get through it, but that sectional semis is a tough one. You want to be playing on Saturday so bad when you're so close you can taste it. So you try to keep that pressure off your team. So I think for Marshfield is not a team that I've seen in games where they're becoming overconfident and not trying to take care of business. And for Eau Claire Memorial, I think it's going to be a proving ground. They've been playing really well as of late. They won their conference, I think, at 14-0. And have a good chunk of wins this year, so we'll see how that game goes. And it's going to be a battle.
80-54, though. 80-54, that matchup just about three and a half weeks ago. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes this time around.
What's your take on it, then, from that standpoint?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I just think that it's going to be a much closer game. I think that's very easy to say. The way that ECM was able to shut down Wausau West on actually, I forgot to mention that game. We went right past it. The other semifinal, Eau Claire Memorial beat Wausau West 53-25. I mean, you talked about how well the Warriors shot on Friday. They couldn't throw it in the ocean on Saturday. 2 of 15 from three-point range and no scores in double digits. So obviously Eau Claire Memorial can play a little defense, even though, again, we don't see Marshfield score 80 points that much. They put up 80 against ECM. Yeah. It shows in high school basketball, we've seen it before. I mean, whatever happens on one night does not necessarily mean it's going to happen the next time you face off.
No, and so much of it comes down to that shooting percentage. You can, like you said, you can shoot. Guys can be taking open looks. The confidence flowing. The bucket's feeling good. They're focused on the rim and drilling the shots from different spots on the floor. And then the next night you can come out and you're a little more tight, or you're a little more tense, or you feel the pressure, or maybe your shot's just not going. It can happen as individuals or a collective group. And you've seen it with so many teams this year. It can really come down to who shoots the ball a little better that night when you've got some evenly matched teams. So I'd like to think at this point, there's a lot on the line in that sectional semi to get to the next step, because once you get through there, also the nice part about you get a day to breathe. You get that Friday to breathe a little bit and refocus and retool and make sure, hey, we want to get down to state and get that next game. So I think it's you're right. Eau Claire Memorial's definitely going to play better, but I think Marshfield's playing very well right now and has the upper hand based on the score of that last game.
And a final statement on Wausau West, who lost that game to ECM. They finished 18-8, really good year. I mean, they came in and they lost some tight games. It could have been actually a much even better record, but I thought that group really did a nice job this year.
Well, even down the stretch, to play a little bit better. We talked about at the end, there's a couple games they'd struggled in just based on looking at score-wise or how they did against a common opponent after the injury that they had to one of their players.
Federici.
Yep. I wanted you to say it so I wouldn't mispronounce it, so I put three names together in one, so I appreciate that. But I think that they salvaged that. And one of the things I think was big this year for West, I always say, their defense, they play really good defense as a team, and I credit to Coach Lemons and his staff that they get that out of them. But I thought the offense at times was pretty potent a lot of times this year, and that really makes it go a long ways. And as much as they have a couple guys going, they have some good young talent coming back too that'll be fun to watch. So they had a good year.
Absolutely. Division II started up on this. The Wausau East Lumberjacks on Friday night. We talked last week how Merrill had done it a couple of years ago to Mosinee, and they almost did it to Wausau East. 52-50, Merrill fell to East. Jesse Napgezik looked like this weekend he was back to full strength. He had 28 points in the game against Merrill. Jaden Garrett, 13. E.J. White, 17. Tyson Ott, 11 for Merrill. But apparently in that game, nobody scored for like the last 4+ minutes. That's what I heard.
Yeah, I watched. It got a little bit sparse on the end of putting the ball in the basket, but from when I saw parts of those games, one of the big things I thought was that every time Merrill came at East did something right back and never really relinquished that lead, which gave him a little control. And it was a little bit tight on the rim for Merrill on some of those final shots that they took that just that didn't fall. But I thought it was a good high school basketball game, and it's something you're going to get, for a number of reasons. Those teams war at it every year, it seems.
Third meeting.
Yeah, at some point they go after each other. It's back and forth. Coach Pieper had coached there for a little bit. Now he's over at things like that. And I know that those teams have there's a couple guys that have played on each other's AAU team. There's just a good rivalry there. So when East jumped out to a little bit bigger lead, either right at the end of half, I don't know if it was at the end of half or starting out early in the second half, they got away a little bit, and then Merrill closed it again. I thought that wasn't going to happen because Merrill's not going to relinquish that lead, and it's going to be tough for East to keep holding it no matter how well they play, because that's just a rivalry game, and it was fun to watch. And obviously East held true to their number one seed and held on to finish that one off.
And then East moved on to play Menominee, and Menominee got there by beating Medford by a score of 74-31. And that was interesting because we've talked this year about how well Medford would do in conference and their non-conference games. They had a number of games like that, and it happened again in the playoffs.
And I didn't see the Medford. I only saw the score.
Right, me too.
And I thought, well, maybe I thought that's going to be a little bit tougher game for East based on this because Medford's solid, but we also know, like we said, they've struggled in their non-conference games, and so for East to go get a dominant performance, I think that's good on both ends because they put up the numbers they usually put in the scoring punch, but keeping a team down at that point in the playoffs in the regional final to hold them down to 35, that's a good defensive performance and something that obviously East can be proud of, and coming out with a good win for their regional final victory.
Then I want to go through all the regional semifinals first before we talked about the regional final. Now I'm thrown off a little bit. So you had Rhinelander edged Rice Lake 43-42, and Mosinee 75-74 over Sparta. I mean, obviously, a couple of one-point games.
Yeah, and for Mosinee had the tough matchup it was in their gym obviously, but at the 4-5 they got that one out at 75-74, so a nice win because sometimes those 4-5 matchups can be a little bit challenging. Rhinelander again, and when we'll talk about the next game, I watched a little bit of that with New Richmond, but the regional semifinal was just a tight one against Rice Lake, which is a good team. and had a nice game. Played well against Rhinelander that night, and just again Rhinelander got the job done. 1 point victory.
And then going to the regional finals on Saturday. Mentioned East and Menominee. It was a dominant performance for East, 68-35, 44-19 at halftime. I mean, as you said, Menominee was so good against Medford the previous night. East struggled a bit against Merrill. It shows, again, does momentum not carry over?
Yeah, I think 100% it does, and it's for East, to whatever they did with their walkthrough to just play that game stronger on both sides of the court was a good proof in what the score was and how they finished off. And I thought that was a convincing win for them in the regional final. Sometimes it's impressive when you can up the ante a little bit, and your team's tired from the night before, and especially in a game like that where it was close against Merrill, two opponents that know each other well, and it was a hard fought game. Sometimes you're dragging a little bit that next night, and you got to squeak that one out. And East obviously was very dominant in their performance, and it showed in what they were able to accomplish and get the well-deserved regional final win.
And Mosinee was at the bottom of that bracket. Again, they were not in the same regional bracket with East and Rhinelander and Merrill and the rest. And after beating Sparta on Friday, Mosinee, number 4 seed, had to travel to number 1 seeded Onalaska. And Onalaska won it 80-67. Treve Stoffel had 20 points. Braden Reinke had 18 for Mosinee. Again, I just think, obviously the lines end somewhere. It's just the way it is. And I think, unfortunately for Mosinee, they were put in a little bit of a tougher bracket. And you have to play who you play, but I thought for Mosinee, they've been a little better off if they have been put with the other teams in the northern part of the bracket.
Yeah, it's definitely going to that side of the state made it a little more challenging for them. Onalaska, the number 1 seed right away. Looks like it still was played competitive, but again, you never know. Well, you do and you don't as a coach, I think. You know what you want your team to show up and do, but when you get in these tight battles the night before on a regional semifinal game and you got to turn around and do it all over again, and you got to battle another team that either came off a great win or they're a higher seed or they're supposed to be a little better than you, those moments get challenging. And after 4-5, beating Sparta by 1, we don't know for sure, but could have taken a little bit out of them. And because you got to get you're ready to go right away because you're playing that number 1 seed in Onalaska and you're doing it on the road. So it's sometimes obviously a little different doing that too. So, Mosinee again did a great job in the GNC at 9-3, finished at 18-8 overall. These teams that are either getting 20 wins or pushing 20 wins, those are sometimes tough to come by now. These 20-win seasons, they're just getting harder and harder. I think as a lot of these teams are even the playing field against each other. So, good job, tough loss in the regional final though for them.
And then there was a game last night. It was I'm not even sure why it was pushed.
Well, so there was something because of the cancellation, somewhere in the cancellations of the games, Rhinelander would have had to play 3 times in a row. The way the games went down is what I thought I read in an article. So that would have, they got permission to move that game to Monday.
Well, actually, I think it was New Richmond. Yeah,
one of the teams would have had to play 3 nights in a row.
They played Thursday, Friday, and then you're right.
So, okay, close.
So, but you're exactly right because I was wondering why. The game was played last night. New Richmond, number 6 seed, number 2 seeded Marshfield. New Richmond had got there by upsetting the number 3 seed River Falls on Friday night, 67-65. Had a chance to watch it last night. It was a back-and-forth game because early on, New Richmond took a 15-5 lead. Then Rhinelander came back and took the lead. They were up at halftime. And then all of a sudden, New Richmond again had a run. They took, I think, about a 9-point lead. Rhinelander came back, was tied at 55, and then scoring the final 7 points of the game was New Richmond, and they continue quite a run as a number 6 seed, winning 62-55. It was a game where I thought Rhinelander played pretty well most of the game. They were making shots when they were behind the first 2 times, but then at the end, in the final 2 minutes, where New Richmond pulled away, Rhinelander just couldn't make any shots.
Yeah, and I thought when New Richmond always kept them at bay. I mean, Rhinelander threw a couple punches, got some drives to the basket, hit some of the outside shots. It was some quick takes, some strong finishes. And then at the end, unfortunately, when the game got tight again and tied, Rhinelander came up a little more empty on the offensive end. New Richmond got fouled a handful of times in there, went to the line because Rhinelander wanted that lead back and just couldn't pull it off. It'll be interesting to see, watching just New Richmond's personnel, to see how they're going to match up against East tomorrow night.
They're a team, and I was listening to Coach Derek Lemons in his pregame interview on the radio last night, and he was talking about there's some similarities between East and New Richmond. They both like to go up and down the court a little bit, but that East has a little bit more size. So maybe that's something that Wausau East can take advantage of. As East will take on New Richmond at Eau Claire North on Thursday night, and on Alaska against West Salem in the bottom of the bracket. What are your thoughts on East? Do they have what it takes to be able to get through?
Oh, yeah. I think just there, I didn't pay attention, I guess, close enough to see how deep New Richmond is because, East isn't always the deepest team, but I think what they have that Coach Garrett uses in his rotation plays well. You got the three guys in Garrett and Kaylee and Nabe Gezik that have logged a lot of varsity hours and can put the ball in the basket. And I think, at that point, it's kind of, the players know what they got to do. It's who can put the ball in the basket a little better, who can get some of the key stops when they're needed in the game. And it becomes that game of runs. You can't get too far behind. And because how many times can you keep conjuring that energy up, especially as these teams start to get better and better. So I definitely think East has what it takes in watching New Richmond. But I don't think those guys are going to fall flat because they're running on a lot of adrenaline and the way they're playing and upsetting teams. They got to have a high amount of confidence in them too. And I like when teams play each other with the similar styles, and we'll see if East size can pull that out because I think they will have some problems with Kaylee in the middle and Negezik size at the guard spot are going to present some problems for New Richmond's defense.
That's Division 1 and Division 2. We'll talk about 3, 4, and 5 a little bit later, but we're going to take a 1-minute timeout and then come back with our coach guest for this week, one of the teams that will be participating in a sectional semifinal on Thursday night, the Marshfield Tigers, Wisconsin Valley Conference champs. We'll talk to their head coach, Chris Fischer, coming up in 1 minute here on the Big High School Sports Show, presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO.
Hello there, this is James,
Melissa,
Chad,
and Seth, inviting you to come work with us. Civic Media is looking for a full-time sales professional to work with existing and new broadcast and digital media clients.
We're a fast-growing company that offers competitive wages, benefits, a relaxed working environment that focuses on quality of life and includes a team of support to reach our shared goals.
Join us in continuing what we have done for 80 years. Be a part of the community, put into the community, celebrate community.
Find out more by contacting Chuck Gennaro at 715-935-8030 or email chuck.gennaro@civicmedia.us. All inquiries are confidential. Civic Media Incorporated is an equal opportunity employer, and we look forward to you joining us.
Hey Wisconsin, it's construction season, and the Wisconsin DOT wants to help you safely navigate work zones. Check 511wi.gov or download the app for road work or closures on your route. Know before you go with 511 Wisconsin, sponsored by the Wisconsin DOT.
It's the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Along with former Newman Catholic High School boys basketball coach Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Very happy to welcome in our coach guest for this week, the head boys basketball coach of the Marshfield Tigers, Chris Fischer. And Coach, thanks for coming back on the program.
Absolutely, Chad. It's always a pleasure for me to talk basketball and talk about our program, so I'm happy to do so.
A lot of good things to talk about in recent years for the Marshfield Tigers. Before we talk about the season as a whole, let's talk immediately about the game against Stevens Point on Saturday, because I thought that was not an easy spot for either squad, because I think that for your team, obviously, you've beaten Stevens Point twice during the regular season. It's a SPASH team that got a significant midseason addition, and it seemed like they were getting better and better as the season went on. And obviously for Stevens Point having to face you guys, Wisconsin Valley Conference champions, it looked like from the outside that game was pretty much everything that one could expect in a third meeting between two really good basketball teams.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's as a coach, when you're prepping to play a team for the third time, specifically coming off of a back-to-back, right? We had a real physical game against Appleton East on Friday night, and Point had a real grinder of a game against Hudson. You prep for that second night. You're trying to envision scenarios that are going to play out, because you know darn well the first two times you played them, you can kind of throw that out the window. It's going to be a completely different game than the first two, and that's exactly what it was. Highly competitive, highly emotional, very tense. Two teams that were filled with seniors who didn't want it to be their last game. All conference, all state caliber players. Every possession meant a lot. And we were fortunate enough to make just enough winning plays down the stretch to come out on the right side of that.
And Coach, we'll just stay in the playoffs since we're talking about it right now. Is there, you guys have been there last year with a lot of the same guys. Is there a different feel or a different, the momentum's not the right word, but is there a different feel to this team this year just because they're a year older and maybe some unfinished business from last year after you got a taste for that? What's the vibe of your team rolling into the playoffs for this year versus last year?
Well, it's definitely a different feeling. Last year we were fortunate enough to have the number 1 seed, so we were coming at it from a different seed, top of the bracket, bottom of the bracket. When you have a lot of guys returning off of a sectional final appearance, at the beginning of your season, you've got to be really careful to be process-oriented, because I think a lot of our guys at the beginning of the year wanted to skip a bunch of steps and immediately get into the playoffs and right back to the sectional final. And we kind of had to slow ourselves down a little bit because, we struggled early on to finish games because I think we were trying to jump all the way ahead to March. And now that we're here, we played 2 of the most physical games that I can remember against Appleton East and Point this last weekend. Fortunately for us, we had that physicality last year against Neenah in the sectional final, against Kimberly in the regional final. So that definitely benefited us this year. The feeling is different. There's a sense of urgency. There's a sense of excitement. And anytime you can play this deep into March, there's a lot of positive energy around our program right now.
We're going to come back to the sectionals coming up in a little bit. Let's kind of take the big picture perspective on Marshfield boys basketball for this season. Coming into the campaign, from anybody around here that follows the Wisconsin Valley Conference, there was a sense that this was as deep a conference as it's been in a number of years. A lot of very competitive teams, a lot of teams that could beat another team almost any night of the week. And your team was able to go through that conference exceptionally well and win another conference championship. What was your take on the league this season? What was the challenge of being as successful as you were this season and what it means for this group of young men?
I would agree with your statement on the depth of the Valley this year being very strong. If you look up and down the standings, Stevens Point being as good as they were with multiple college-level players, a team like DC Everest was still very, very strong, even with missing a 1,000-point scorer in Clone Preby for the majority of the season, got him back late. A team like Wausau West coming out with 18 wins. You see Wausau East still playing in their sectionals in Division II, them getting a 1 seed. And then you got a team like Rapids, who maybe weren't as good, but they had 2 really talented guards, and they end up knocking off Wausau East in the conference schedule. And then a team like Merrill, who would compete their tails off, and for a large portion of the game were in a lot of games. So the depth of the Valley was very strong. From our perspective, when we first started as a staff 5 years ago, our goal was to just kind of win 1 conference championship. And now that we've kind of got on this run here, our goal is to win the next one. And the philosophy that we take, we know that there's a target on us, but we don't want people to be chasing us. We don't want that target to be on our back. We want to turn around and be the attackers, be the aggressors. The old philosophy that I got from Coach Len Luckey, the old football coach at Marshfield, was every conference game needs to be treated as a conference championship game. So our approach and our preparation, every time we're playing a conference champion or a conference opponent, we treat it as a conference championship game, and we're going to continue to do that.
And that was my next question. I was going to ask you with that 12-0 mark, how hard the pressure or does that ever get to the players, ever get to the coaches? But you've answered your philosophy on that. So I'd like to look at the players a little bit. I've seen you guys play, a couple times when I've been able to watch the games and stream them or hear them on the radio. And I'm always impressed with the balance you have in the lineup, the execution that the kids do. The backcourt you have is just it's tough the way different guys can show up, and then you sprinkle all that in with, in my opinion, with Hinson, who can take whatever role he needs to take. And I think that's just awesome as a point guard, the different things you can get out of him. How about, I don't know, some things about the individual guys that make this team so strong and solid, and obviously shows that you're still playing now and what you're accomplishing, as well as how you ran the gamut in the Valley Conference this year?
Well, it starts with our two captains, Brooks Hinson and Landon Lee, the two guards that you talk about. Quite frankly, Brooks Hinson he's the best player in the history of our program. He's for sure the most accomplished player in the history of our program. You mentioned how he has a knack of knowing what is needed on a nightly basis for us to be successful. I can't point to a better example than the regional final on Saturday night when he held Grant Shannon out of 5 points. In turn, Grant held Brooks to 8. It was the one-on-one matchup where neither one of them gave an inch. But Brooks turned into a facilitator. He turned into a screener. He turned into a rebounder. He's the best. In my mind, he's a Division I player. But he's gonna be a real nice player at the next level. And then with Landon Lee, the passion and the competitive spirit he plays with, he plays so hard. He tremendous ball handler, really, really good at creating his own shot. Very difficult for any team to try to pressure us in the full court or run and jump us or trap us with those two guys and their ability to handle the ball. And then, we've got Joey Ketter as a shooter. We've got Chris Pohl at 6'7", 6'8", that can stretch the floor. Ethan Connect that knows his spot as a post. Valen Ramberg. Cam Kolstad's getting some strong minutes with us as a sophomore. And then you sprinkle that in with 6 to 7 guys off your bench who compete their tails off at practice and get these guys better, get their teammates better every day. It's a real treat to coach the team that we got right now.
And again, we're talking to Chris Fischer, the head boys basketball coach at Marshfield, here on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. I got to talk to you about the defense, because the two games that I broadcast that I saw your team against Wausau West, you gave up 29 points and 39 points. And that was not an accident based on what you've been able to accomplish this season, to have those kind of kids that can put the ball in the basket so well. Sometimes, it seems you put the ball in the basket, then you can have a harder time stopping the other team from putting it in the basket. But the defense seems to be such a big factor for your group as well. Can you talk a little bit about the philosophy on that side of the end, on that side of the court, and also how those kids implement it and take it as seriously as the offensive end?
Yeah, the defensive philosophy, I guess, I don't think it's any different than most high school coaches in our state. Making shots can be really difficult at times. So when that can come and go, you really have to pride yourself on defense. And our philosophy and our talk all the time is defense really, it doesn't take a whole lot of skill. It's a lot about understanding who you're guarding individually, understanding what your opponent does best and trying to take that away from them, and then get yourself in the right position and have tremendous effort. So, a lot of those things, none of that really takes any talent or any skill. So when we can pride ourselves defensively and not allow them to score, it can kind of relax you a little bit offensively. And we always say, if you're going to take a rest on the court, you take your rest on offense, because defense, we need you all out. So we work and try to work our offensive skill to try to improve our ability to make shots, because quite frankly, we've had some clunkers offensively this year, and the only way we could win those games was to make sure we defended and rebounded. So we pride ourselves in being really good defensively.
And, Coach, I got to ask, because I kind of forgot about this, and I can't remember if this was at the tail end when I was at Newman. We had Coach Schmidt on earlier in the year, and we were asking him about all the assistant coaches that he's been blessed with, and he must have liked you because he name dropped you, but I forgot totally that you had been part of that staff, and now you've taken over the Marshfield. So I don't know a little bit about your coaching journey, how all that's meant, because obviously small school or a smaller school in Stratford, and then the bigger school in Marshfield, and having success at different levels and working your way into it, I think is a great journey, and reaping the benefits with being in a really good place at Marshfield right now. You want to share a little bit about your journey from one place to the other?
Sure. So I am a Marshfield graduate, and I graduated in 2001 from Marshfield, and shortly after I graduated high school, going to college at UW-Stevens Point, first in UW-Marshfield, I was able to start coaching football under the Hall of Fame coach Len Lutke here at Marshfield, and got to see him and how he led a program and how he allowed his assistants to coach, his position coaches to coach. And once I graduated from college, my first job was at Thorpe, where I did some coaching in the middle school and high school levels, both football, basketball, and baseball. Shortly thereafter, I got a teaching job at Stratford, and I was a teacher there for 7 years at the high school. And I coached with Coach Schmidt on his staff. Got to coach with him, Corey Heckel, who was Everest coach for a long time, then became the Stratford assistant. And then I got to closely work with Bill Knetter, the Hall of Fame coach, who's Stratford's JV boys coach. So Coach Knetter was the JV coach, and I was the freshman coach at Stratford, and we always had joint practices together. And watching Coach Knetter and his relationship with kids and how simple he kept his practice plans, I owe a lot to Coach Knetter in that regard, and to Coach Schmidt for having me on his staff. And then shortly thereafter, I was hired at Marshfield and was an assistant for Coach Scott Scheuer for 3 years until becoming the head coach right in the middle of COVID, 5 years. So I owe a lot to a lot of different people, and very fortunate and thankful to all those that helped me along the way.
There's so much more that's involved in having a successful program than just what you see maybe on a Tuesday or Friday night between the lines. What is it maybe that people don't see part of the Marshfield program generally that may be surprising, or maybe just something they wouldn't know that helps in terms of the success beyond having really talented players that work hard?
The one thing that immediately comes to mind for me in our program has to do with our academic standard, and I don't want to go into the specifics of that, but what I remember is first year as a head coach with the current assistants in place. I can remember that was right in the heart of the COVID pandemic, where education and schooling and teaching was very, very different. And we had a difficult time on the court, but more so we were having a difficult time off the court with our academics, just trying to get ourselves caught up academically. And if I learned anything about our program and how I wanted it to be run, it was during that struggle where we needed to take on the standard of how we do anything is how we do everything. And it became a struggle to live up to those standards, and a daily fight to make sure that we were taking care of our academic stuff, to make sure that we were taking care of our decision making. And I really think that our off the court work with our program and with our athletes has really led to a lot of the success we're having on the court now. It became a mindset. It became a daily, we've got to live up to this standard regardless of what our outcome on the court's going to be. So I think our work in that regard has really helped us shine.
And Coach, I love to hear what you guys think in the ongoing process of getting your teams just always to the next level, to get to that next game and keep conquering and surviving as best you can to elongate the season. You had Eau Claire Memorial obviously earlier in the year, and or not earlier in the year, a couple of weeks, probably less than a month ago, give or take, right? And you had them the first time around. Obviously, by scoreboard, you handled them. Now you got them again on Thursday night over in Neilsville. What's your take on how you go into that to keep, whether you have to keep players grounded, whether you got to get them, it's the playoffs. That first game's gone. This is a whole different stretch. What's kind of your message, your philosophy, or work you do to get the team prepared for that one? Since at this point, nothing's going to come easy, and you're going to have to earn every ounce of it to get to the next level.
Yeah, the first time we played them was a Saturday, and there was a lot of things working in our favor that day before even taking the court. So we had both played the night before, so it was the second of a back-to-back, and we were able to host this one, so we didn't have to get on a bus. We were able to kind of do our own thing after Friday night's game and prep a little bit Saturday morning. So we had a lot of things working in our favor there. And I don't think we can take a whole lot of that first game. There's some familiarity there too, because a couple of our players and a couple of the Memorial players have played AAU together for the past several seasons. So there's a competitive rivalry there where a lot of our guys get along, but there's a competitiveness that's going to come out when they play each other and they want to beat each other so bad. So there's a lot of moving parts to this matchup. As a coach, you're trying to think about what could they possibly do differently than the first time you played them. So you're trying to prepare for different scenarios, but you don't want to over-prepare either. You've gotten yourself this far, so you want to rely on your instincts. You want your players to play freely. You want to be proactive instead of reactive. So it's going to be a fun environment against a high-quality opponent who's playing very well, 2 quality playoff wins, relatively easily judging by the scoreboard. So, we've got to be at our best. We've got to make sure we're peaking by Thursday night.
I want to ask you about, because obviously nowadays, and definitely much different than when you played, when there would be 8 teams going to the state tournament and the sectionals were much smaller. I mean, this sectional is just big distances. You got the Fox Valley, you got the Big Rivers teams, you got going all the way up to Superior, and you've seen teams from all over the state. Looking at your schedule, it looks like you've prepared yourself exceptionally well for this sectional. You've played teams from the Big Rivers, you played teams from the FVA. You've been, what have you noticed is the difference? Because obviously your game against Eau Claire Memorial, the other sectional semi has a couple of Fox Valley teams in Kaukauna and Kimberly. What are the differences that you've seen maybe between what you see in the western part of the state, the eastern part of the state, and right here in the middle of the state?
Well, the styles are definitely different. With the eastern part of the state and the Fox Valley schools, it seems like every school in that area, not just with the Fox Valley Association, but also with I'm blanking. I think it's the Fox River, the FRCC.
Yep.
Like the Piers and the Sheboygans. It just seems like every school in that area has just incredibly well-conditioned athletes, like the multi-sport jump, the leapers, the shooters, the physicality. It just seems like every school in that area has got athletes upon athletes upon athletes. If you look at our area, the central Wisconsin area, we've got athletes, but physically they just look different. Western part of the state, you kind of get a little bit of everything. Certainly with the Memorials, Hudson, River Falls, it just seems like there's a different type of athlete. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but the physicality of the eastern part of the state, they just look different than the central or the western part. Now, that said, you get them on a basketball floor, and you've got to react to what you see. Kakana is incredibly impressive on paper, and when you watch them on film, they're even better. Really, it looks like it looks like a state championship football team. I mean, these guys are just strong, solid, well-built kids, and you get 2 or 3 of them that can shoot the lights out, and now you've got yourself a team. Team like Eau Claire Memorial, fast, quick, athletic, well-built post players. Our sectional's loaded. Everybody says their sectional's the best in the state, and I would have to agree with that.
And Coach, again, looking at your team, just for you guys to continue this season to keep making runs, everybody, you're talking about what these other teams have. What do you really like about your team right now? What are other teams like? Hey, you gotta watch out for this with us because this is what makes us a danger. Or what you really like in terms of we're doing an exceptional job on this, and this is going to keep propelling our season game after game.
I like our ability to play at multiple different paces. We're okay playing the game at any tempo. Preferably, we would like to play in high possession games. We know that's not always the case. We're well aware that it's easier to slow a game down than it is to speed it up. We are aware that when it comes sectional time, every possession means a little bit more. Whereas we would like to play up tempo, we're comfortable playing the half-court game. We're comfortable playing in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s or in the 80s and 90s. I like our balance. I think the one thing that we've done very well in the last 2 and a half months is I think we've rebounded well. Very few games where we've been out-rebounded. Stevens Point got us in the paint a little bit, but prior to that, I thought we were dominating or at least competing very, very well with points in the paint and competing with teams there. I've made this statement a couple times before. I'll take our guys against anybody. They're not afraid to put it all on the line. They compete so hard. They play so hard. And when you do that, you're not afraid of the outcome. You can live with the results. So it's going to be fun the next couple days of preparation, and I hope we're at our best on Thursday.
And I like that answer, Coach. I like that answer because that's often what I hear is that you're versatile, yet it also frustrates everybody because you can play at all their styles. So good answer there.
Coach Chris Fischer, we're coming up against the clock here at the top of the hour, but really, really great to hear from you. Hopefully we can get Wisconsin Valley Conference team to the state tournament. I think everybody would love to be able to see that coming up in the next week or so. But best of luck in the sectional semis and hopefully the sectional finals. And again, really appreciate your time.
I appreciate that, guys. Thank you very much. Roll Tigers.
Chris Fischer, head boys basketball coach of the Marshfield Tigers. We're going to take a timeout, information update, news, weather, and sports, and then coming up after that, another hour to go. And we'll start things off with our student-athlete guest, Charlie Cayley from the Wausau East Lumberjacks. That's straight ahead. Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO. Welcome back. Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO. Online at WXCO.FM. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. With former Newman Catholic High School boys basketball coach Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Time now for our student-athlete guest for this week from Wausau East High School, multi-sport athlete and one of the leaders for the Lumberjacks, Charlie Cayley. And Charlie, thank you for popping on over.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We'll get you a little closer to that microphone so everybody can hear you. No, it's all good.
All right.
But it's been quite a senior year. I mean, I think every time that every athlete wants to have a great year, and you had a football year that was very exciting, and now a basketball year where you're still battling now in the sectional. I imagine that since school started back in late August, it's been quite a whirlwind.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Sports definitely make you go by faster, and it's fun to just compete out there on the field or court with those same boys. It's awesome.
Let's start off with the basketball aspect because not too many guys are averaging double-doubles, and you've been averaging a double-double, points and rebounds per game, been part of a very successful Wausau East program the last 2 years. Looking at yourself, what are the keys for your success on the court? Because obviously you're somebody that can work down low and get the points. You're obviously someone who grab those boards. How would you describe your game this season for East?
I mean, my focus is definitely rebounding. I try to go out there and get every board I can, and then I kind of just let the points come to me if they do. Kind of let our guards and forwards get it to me whenever, and, just kind of let the game do this thing.
And how big a deal is it for you to be also a versatile? Because I've watched you play, and you can obviously go outside and hit outside shots, and you got touch on the free throw line, so you don't want teams shouldn't want to follow you either. And obviously you've work on all the finishing moves down around the basket for yourself. How much time and effort? Because I know one of the things that I talked to Coach Garrett about when he was on here is you see a lot of East guys at the Y. They're there. They're kind of you're walking in and out there too, working on your game, and that's maybe above practice hours or times when you just want to go focus on that. And I think it's a big deal. So how important is you that you've diversified that game where you could drag a guy to the outside as much as you could go bullying around on the inside?
I think it's a lot better for our offense. It spaces us out a lot more. It kind of just helps the flow of the offense. And I like to think I'm a threat out there. I like to hit some more shots, but, I just kind of do my thing, get inside out, and just let it happen.
The season itself, going into the season, looking at the Wisconsin Valley Conference, I thought it was as competitive as it's been in a very long time. So many good teams. I mean, you look at Marshfield and Spash and East and Everest and West, and even, Rapid struggle, but they have a couple of kids that can obviously put the ball in the hole very well. I shouldn't have brought up Rapids, but Merrill as well, obviously. But going into the season, looking at the Valley, what were the expectations? Was the conference season a little bit harder than maybe you thought it might be? Because, obviously very competitive every night of the week when you hit the court.
Yeah, definitely our conference is deep, I think. Probably one of the best conferences in the state. We got a lot of talent in the senior and junior class, and every game in the conference is going to be a fight. So, we thought we wanted to win conference, of course. That's our goal. But it's hard. It's hard to beat Marshfield. It's hard to beat Spash. But we battled, and we fell short, but most of our losses on the overall record are in conference, so it just kind of tells you about the Wisconsin Valley. Real
fast before Jeff jumps back in, the fact that you go from a conference where you're playing all these Division I powerhouses to the Division II, it gets you prepared for the playoffs, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. They definitely run in Division I, and they play faster, they're bigger, but it just gets us ready for playoff. We treat it like a playoff game every time. So, we're just getting ready for this spring and March.
And how about the makeup of your team? You've logged a lot of hours with those guys, whether it's been from football to basketball within your class. You guys have grown up. A lot of you guys were playing at very young ages out there on the varsity floor. So you definitely have a knack for understanding what it takes to win and what you have to accomplish as a team and how to do it together. How about just in your analysis, what is some parts of East basketball that make you guys a dangerous opponent that you're still playing, that you're taking down teams here and showed some great basketball in the last game against Menominee and stuff? What makes East basketball good right now from your standpoint, or give your buddies some props or whatever you want to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we've been playing for a very long time together. Fourth grade, whenever travel ball started. So we kind of have that chemistry and friendship. So we just know where to find each other on the court, and I think it's kind of really coming together now, as I'm happy it is. And, if we're getting trouble, like I know I was in foul trouble the last few games, and there's some people that stepped off the bench. Jed Vanderson, he's a dog out there, and he was just doing everything against Menominee, that's for sure. And, we just got some guys that can step it up and that people don't think of, and we're deeper than people think.
What was the difference between Friday and Saturday? Because we saw Menominee on Friday just dominate Medford. And Medford was a team that had a chance to win the Great Northern on the last night of the season, and they lost to Menominee by 40-some points. You guys, as we talked about, battled Merrill right down to the wire in a 2-point game, and then you just come out and have like a 30-point lead at halftime. What was the difference for your team between Friday and Saturday?
I think, Merrill's always a game. It kind of sucks, but it is. But we were just hungry on Saturday for sure. I think we could have played a lot better on Friday, and we were just like gritting our teeth going into Saturday. So we came out with more energy and just jumped on them right away and kind of ran away with it.
Does it help from a player standpoint? Because I know, once you grind out one of those games before, if you've left it on the floor and you battled, it's not only mentally draining as much as it is physically draining because you left it out there in the tight one. And then I thought it was impressive that you guys turn around and just go after a team that was probably riding a high, beating Medford solid over at their place. Is it ever hard to play those back-to-backs? And it's obviously got to be nice to be at home because you can get back in, you get back in your own bed that night. You can maybe rest up a little bit more, depending on whatever time your coach has their get-together or shoot-around. But I got to imagine those back-to-backs are tough. And so you guys must be really happy with how you played against Menominee to bounce back and or not bounce back, but just continue to play well and up the ante a little bit when it should be a tougher game the next night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely nice to play at home, knowing we can get there later, sleep in. But we still have our shoot-arounds, got to get up. But we just celebrated that Merrill win that Friday night and then left it in the past Saturday and went after our new opponent on Saturday night.
Again, we're talking to Charlie Cayley from Wausau East, senior for the Lumberjack boys basketball team that are getting set for Thursday night's sectional semifinal against New Richmond at Eau Claire North. I got to ask you a little bit about the football aspect because obviously you're somebody that was a major force for the Lumberjacks on the gridiron. Can you compare football and basketball in terms of what you get out of the game? Is there one that you enjoy more than the other? But basically maybe your experiences with different sports. What are the biggest differences between maybe being a member of the football team and being a member of the basketball team?
I'd definitely say my weight. I lose a lot of weight during basketball, so and put it on during football. So that's fun and not fun at times. But I'd say just try to use my bigger body against littler people, you could say. Just kind of dominate them down low or on the line. It's kind of a grit your teeth sort of position in basketball and football. So
let me ask one more football question here. What did it mean for that program when it had so many difficulties to be able to accomplish what it did this past fall?
It was awesome. I mean, we had a great crowd, and we had that home playoff game. There was nothing else like it. And Tom Field, you can't beat Tom Field. It's just really uplifting for the program too, and I think it's going to evolve a lot more kids, and they'll want to be better at football and take it more seriously. And I think it's really a stepping stone to where the program will be.
Is that something big you're going to take? Because with my nephew Isaac and stuff, I watched a lot of just how the program evolved. Sort of, it was all over the place. Sometimes you were fighting to have just a JV squad. Sometimes you, for a little bit while they were an 8-man and 11, it was just choppy for anybody participating, even though people were trying to do what was best for players as the best they could. I got to imagine it was just, like you said, an awesome culmination of kind of battling through that. But I'm assuming you're going to take that challenge with you and that battle, through life, and it's going to mean something and something that you guys have established. So how big a deal was it for you to go through that journey, or what was it like to go through that journey where, this year you finally had the playoff game and the standing in a conference, being in a home somewhere versus it kind of floating around being like you don't necessarily always know what the next moment might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think, I was a sophomore playing on that JV varsity reserve, whatever we were playing. So we had a lot of doubters that we'd play. But going to varsity my junior year, we had higher expectations than what we finished. But, I mean, we were kind of fitting that varsity role again. I think we were a team like that could actually do something against all those other Valley teams. But going into the Great Northern senior year, I think was the right fit for us. And I think we should stay there for a little while. And it's just nice to be in a conference where we can compete and stay at the top.
Did that dogfight help you into your other sports? I mean, because you did it with some of the same guys that are on your basketball team, as well as it's like you're always trying to earn something, always trying to prove something. I imagine that carried into the other sports that you do too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I play with, I mean, I can list them all. Jaden Davis, Jesse. I mean, we're just transitioning from football into basketball with that chip on our shoulder still, and just like showing we always have something to prove.
Are you involved in spring sports?
I am. I'm going to be in track and field, and then I'm going to play golf too.
What events are you involved in track and field?
I'm a thrower. Yeah, I throw shot put and discus, and then I'll do some running here and there just to get a little faster.
And I got to ask you about the golf, because obviously a 6'6" young man, the equipment, you must have some pretty long shafts on those golf clubs. How are you a power hitter? Are you a guy who can put it out there a long way?
No, surprisingly, no. I cannot hit the ball very far or very straight. But I mean, I'm just kind of doing it for fun this spring with some of the boys that are going out. But I like to golf in my free time. I worked up there last summer at the Trap River, so I got a lot of free golf. And I mean, I can hit a chip shot though. I'll give myself
That's how you score.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
drive for a show and putt in the short game for dough.
Mm-hmm.
We always like to ask the players too a little bit, like, you get so busy, on top of your academics and on top of the sports time and whatever else you might have, whether there's family stuff, extracurriculars, a job, whatever it is. What do you like to do to kind of just kick back, and if you get away from it, what's your fun times where you can just defuse and gather your thoughts?
Well, I like to work out a lot. I'll probably head to the Y after this, honestly. But yeah, I like to work out, kind of take my mind off things. I work on my sports. I mean, doing individual stuff always helps me, calms me down. But at night, I'll just go. I make a lot of food. I like making a lot of protein foods, and sit back and relax, watch some NBA or college basketball.
Are you hoping to continue to be involved in some sport at the next level?
Yes, I'll be playing football at St. Thomas next year.
And what do you think jumping from the high school level to college, other than just, bypass the strength aspect of it, because they always want you as strong as you guys can be. What do you think's the biggest thing you got to work on from your game in high school to your game in college to be the player you want to, or the levels you want to reach?
I think, I got to put some more weight on after all this basketball losing. But I'd say I just got to get stronger, more powerful, and just more dominant up front. I think that's what St. Thomas is kind of known for, so I'm really going to work on that this summer and spring.
Do they have you? Are you staying at the same? Because I know sometimes the coaches will decide that you're going to go somewhere. Do you get to stay at the same position, or are they going to move you to something else? Or they have talked about, or does that not come up yet?
For now, I'm an old lineman, so yeah.
But if the coaches are listening, you want to play a little tight end, right? You want to touch the ball once here.
Maybe.
Okay.
Our guard, tackle, center. I mean, do you have any idea?
I was a left tackle in high school, but I'm sure I'll stay at the tackle end.
Do you have any idea on study? What class of study that you may be getting involved in?
I'm looking to do like an exercise science route or physical therapy type of field. So I haven't really decided, but somewhere in that training realm.
Does that lead you to a favorite class you have right now, or a favorite teacher that you want to get some props or possibly raise a grade if you have? Sometimes they're listening.
I'm in young adult medicine, so we kind of learn about like body and body functions, and we have speakers come in, and my teacher, Miss Truax, shout out, she lets us do puzzles the whole time. So that's awesome.
Do you have a favorite rival?
Let's see. I would like to say Marshfield, but I don't know if I can call it a rival since we haven't won in a while. But them and Spash are definitely at the top of my list. I'm not a fan of either of them. But I mean, it's always nice to play crosstown Everest or West.
Nobody beat Marshfield, so yes, it was in the conference this year. So it was a case of he came close the second time.
Yeah, I was pretty bummed about that.
Jumping back a little bit to the basketball, how important has it been for you guys to kind of leave your mark on the East boys basketball program, where you just as you've been younger, you guys have just steadily been climbing. It's getting better and better each year, and again, you're at the regional final level right now. correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this was the level, the sectional semi where you made it to last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess two things. How important is it that you guys get to leave your mark, and how big a deal it is to punch through this next game just to see, everybody wants to go a little farther whenever they can, obviously. So that's obviously a goal. So how big a deal are those two things?
I'd say like leaving the mark. I think we influence a lot of young kids. We go, we run the junior jacks camps, the youth camps, and try to like connect with them. And I think we're all nice kids, so we like to connect with those young kids, and they look up to us, I think. And I just hope we can. I mean, we have a good freshman, sophomore class coming up, so I think it's going to be bright coming up. And then what was the other question?
How getting through this next game, because you you're at the same level you were at, and I think all teams talk, even when we talk to coaches and players, it's what you learn from one year to the next of what you have to do. But maybe what you guys think is going to be important in that game against New Richmond to get to that sectional final, to get one more step further than last year.
Yeah, I think we're definitely more comfortable in the position we are now. Since last year, we're going back to the same place, Eau Claire North, right where it happened. So we're just there to finish business this Thursday and go to the sectional final. I know I'm fired up. The boys are fired up. We're having a good week of practice. So, I mean, yeah, we're ready to go.
Do you dare, when you put your head on the pillow at night, to think about maybe getting to the Kohl Center?
Oh, of course. That's like an every night thing. That's definitely been our final goal all year, and I think this is the year for us. This is when we can do it.
And so with that being said, what's something that you think your team needs to just be consistent on that will get you to that stage that you like about what you guys are doing, that if we keep doing this, we're going to be in a good place?
I think the energy piece. I mean, if we have energy, I don't think we can be beat. Defense, offense, anything. We just got to come out fiery and hype and just get loud for each other. And I think we're unstoppable.
Anything else, Jeff, before?
Yeah, obviously you've logged a lot of time. I always like to, because I think when you do stuff, whether it's in high school or any time in life, it's got to be worthwhile. It's got to mean something, because then you can have less chance of regrets, and you can have more things that have really been a staple that either make you who you are or continue to build who you're going to be. And so I always like to ask seniors, what about high school sports is going to be the most memorable to you when you look back when it's all said and done?
I'd say definitely, like, obviously the highlights of it, winning those regional championships, hopefully the section, hopefully going to the Kohl Center, getting that playoff game, all those big events. But definitely like the practices and like the extra work we put in with our teammates. It's just a good time and something I'll never forget.
And how big a deal are those teams? I mean, that's just, I think, those relationships and bonds and those friendships that are made, I think that it's just one of the biggest deals. Set aside all wins and losses and tough moments and other stuff that come up, that might be the biggest part of it. And if 20 years, if some of you guys are still talking and friends and all this, and you don't see each other for a while and you communicate because that was the bond that was built that's so strong, time doesn't really matter anymore. It's just when you run into each other again. How big a deal are those friendships that are created throughout your high school career?
Oh, they're definitely huge. I think it definitely helps a team a lot more with players that are closer together. And, I mean, we like to do stuff outside of sports together, like hang out, go golfing. We'll go to Crumble Cookie after football practice, go get some cookies. Yeah, we like to go out to eat and just, like, having fun with each other because we really enjoy spending it with each other.
And our final question is, especially for a senior who's been involved in numerous varsity sports, is now that you've getting close to the finish line towards your graduation, based on what you've learned over the years, for somebody who's just starting their journey as a freshman, what piece of advice would you give them to think about as they start their journey based on what you've learned?
I'd say, set goals and shoot for them, and, like, never have a bad day, because, you can turn a bad day into a good day anytime you want. So, just work hard after it, and, you're going to achieve what you want.
Charlie Cayley, enjoy your bus ride to Eau Claire and hopefully to lacrosse on Saturday.
Yeah, I will.
Best of luck to you and your teammates.
Thank you.
Charlie Cayley, senior for the Wausau East Lumberjacks. We're going to take a quick timeout, come back, look at more of the action on the hardwood and on the ice as we continue here on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO.
More state champions are crowned on the mat and the ice over the weekend. I'm Travis Wilson, and this is a WisSports.net Minute brought to you by Just a Game Fieldhouse and Wisconsin Dells. More high school sports news after this. You may have heard of Just a Game Fieldhouse in Wisconsin Dells, one of the country's premier destinations for youth sports and events, but did you know that Just a Game does so much more? Just a Game also delivers end-to-end apparel, equipment, and event solutions. With their state-of-the-art screen printing and embroidery facility, they can help with branding for your team and business items, including uniforms, apparel, and more. Just a Game also offers digital services that include a cashless digital platform and event live streaming. Just a Game has also added a second brand new facility in Reedsburg. Find more information at justagame.com. It was a busy weekend for winter sports tournaments, with champions crowned in multiple places throughout the state. At the venerable UW Fieldhouse in Madison, the team wrestling tournament saw some familiar programs dominate. Kaukauna captured its 5th consecutive Division I team title, dominating Arrowhead 54-13 in the title bout. St. Croix Falls captured the Division II team crown. Mineral Point edged out Waiawega Fremont in the Division III finals, winning the school's 13th team championship. On different kinds of mats in Wisconsin Rapids on Saturday, the WIAA Gymnastics Championships were held. Senior Kylie Frank of Elkhorn was the D1 all-around champion, also winning the uneven bars and vault. West Bend East McKenna Orth captured the D2 all-around, plus the vault and floor exercise titles. In Middleton, Edgewood claimed the Division I boys hockey championship, defeating Notre Dame 5-2 for the school's first WIAA title. Also capturing their first championship was Tomahawk, who downed the Amory Co-op 5-3 in Division II. The De Pere Co-op, also known as the Bay Area Ice Bears, won the girls hockey championship 8-0 over the DC Everest Co-op. Faye Brunke became the first player to score 4 goals in a state final. We'll have a preview of the girls basketball state tournament later this week, while boys hoops heads to sectional play. This has been a WisSports.net Minute. Check us out online at WisSports.net.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO with Jeff Gress. I'm Chad Holmes. Back-to-back interviews. But good stuff. Takes a big chunk of the program, which is the way we like it.
Yeah, well, that's the anytime you talk about the highlights of the show, not that the other stuff we try to share isn't meaningful, but I think I love the picture that gets painted by any of the coaches and players that we have, because it's genuine, it's authentic, it's what they're living in the moment on, and what makes high school sports a special thing. Let's
go through the basketball again. We were up to Division III, and Wittenberg-Burnham, a number 2 seed in their bracket in D3. And we talked last week about how they'd struggled coming down the stretch. They had, I think, a 5-game losing streak. Then they won their final regular season game. And this looked like they were not able to eventually turn it around, as they lost their first playoff game on Friday night, a regional semifinal to number 7 seeded Wrightstown, 59-51. Xander Barkey at 21, Jet Rogowski 13, Oliver Fraze at 12. But I think that we learn a lot that you are kind of who you are at that point of the season when the playoffs start. If you're struggling, it's hard to turn it around at that point. And I think for Whitburn, it was a struggle late and never really able to turn it around.
And I think the other thing to keep in mind is sometimes when we look at that we don't follow all those teams in that bracket super close, other than when we talk about Wittenberg here and there, but Wrightstown and Freedom and some of those other teams there, they just sometimes come out of the area of the state a little different. I think it also shows geographically basketball's played a little different in different areas, like Coach Fischer alluded to, with some of the different areas of what you get in terms of style and size and all that stuff. And I do agree. It's sometimes you don't want to be at the end of the season where your scores are up and down, even or you're not, that vote of confidence might not necessarily be there. And for Wittenberg, it was a little bit tough down the stretch at the end. Still, 17 wins, 11-3 mark in the conference for third place, but a tough loss, especially when you're the higher seed and you did that and you didn't win the game at home.
The other team in D3 that part of the conferences that we cover was Northern Pines. They won their regional semifinal 66-60 over Oconto Falls, and then fell to Freedom, number 1 seed, 86-61. And again, you see Freedom all the time. And as you said, and I think what we talked about with Coach Fischer as well, and it's not just the D1 teams. It feels like in that part of the state, there's just a lot of really good basketball teams.
Well, and I don't know if it comes from this, but I know when when my son was in fourth, fifth, sixth grade, some of those teams we'd have one team at Newman that we were playing with, and a Kimberly team has 5. And so I think there's just a lot of kids. That's a populated area of the state, and it changes the style a little bit. Maybe allows what you do. Maybe that numbers create that higher level of competition. But there's definitely, I think the truth can be told that in different areas of the state, basketball's played a little bit differently.
Division 4, and again, boy, you talk about battles, and it's always the Merriwood South that kind of is the featured teams in these battles. It started on Friday night with the regional semifinals, and there was nearly a massive upset. The number 1 seed in the top half of Sectional 2 in D4, Auburndale. They had struggled a little bit. Like we talked about Whitburn, they had struggled a little bit. I mean, against obviously really good teams, but they lost by double digits to both Stratford and Marathon late in the season. And then they played number 8 seeded Colby on Friday, and Colby had a 5-point lead late and could not make a free throw to punch their ticket to the big upset. Auburndale was able to come back, win in overtime, 70-63. And again, Blake Rabb had 25 points. Keegan MP at 15, but boy, that had to be a tough bus ride home for Colby because they kind of had it.
Yeah, and to take Auburndale to OT at that point, I'm assuming Auburndale was sweating it out a little bit too because they didn't want to end their season, especially when Colby had given them a game the first time. Now, I think it was one of the first games of the season, if not the first game, and I believe it was 70-62 was the final. I think in Auburndale also for that game. So. Colby is a formidable foe, a good competitor against them, but sometimes it's just about finding ways to win and pulling out those tight ones, and they did that in 2 games in a row.
Marathon, number 4 seed on Friday, beat number 5 Phillips by a score of 78-52. Really never in doubt in that one. Marathon took the lead early. Drew Wolfel 17, Logan Peters 15, Cody Radke 12. No surprise there with Marathon beating Phillips for the second time.
Yeah, Marathon controlled that game. Good balance, solid defense. Put the points up in the basket when Marathon scoring almost about 80 points. That's a good night for them offensively.
Stratford beat Edgar significantly by a score of 73-52. Drew Brusewitz had 23 points. Brooks Vanderhoof 15 for Stratford. And again, that Stratford team, you talk about teams that struggle late, it looks like Stratford's getting better and better as the season goes on.
Yeah, they peaked right at the right time. I mean, they kind of came in and just swung in a couple games, took the conference lead. Then they've been playing very dominant in their games, both against Edgar, who's a similar conference foe that they've had twice already, and then I think that the next game that will with the Hurley team, that was a nice win. Not to get too far ahead, sorry.
Bondwell in the bottom part of that bracket, the regional top half and then the regional bottom half, still sectional number 2. Bondwell beat Shiocton CWC East opponent by a score of 87-50. Quinn Westenberg 23, Ryan Westrick 22 for Bondwell. And I'm going to start with the next games with Bondwell again. Yeah, on Saturday in the regional final because they rolled past Oconto 70-49. Again, Westenberg had 20 points for Bondwell. Saw Bondwell last year. They made it to the sectional final against Marathon, played a good game. It looks like, and we talked about them this season, they only had the one loss. That Bondwell team from the CWC East is going to be one that can jump up against one of the teams that we talk about when we continue to talk about those Merriwood South squads.
I think they're good. Well, they showed that they could compete last year. Lost a little bit to Graduation, but obviously has a handful back in terms of the scoring punch that they have. Just a good record out of that class, the senior class for them, and doing a good job. I think they're going to be a tough opponent for whichever Merriwood South team comes out of that part of the bracket.
And then the top half again, Saturday in the regional finals, a game that Tom Weaver had right here on 98.9 WXCO, Auburndale Marathon. And again, if you take what I was saying before about, when you come in playing well or not playing well, Marathon had beat Auburndale in the final regular season game in Auburndale. Auburndale had struggled, barely able to survive the night before. It feels like Marathon's in a good spot. Nip and tuck game, and in the end, a tip in by Thomas Aui at the buzzer, lifting Auburndale past Marathon 51-49. Josh Lundgren 20, Blake Rabb 16, Ian Schuda 19 for Marathon. And I'm going to give you a stat here because Tom told me the stat when he was getting ready for the game. Tom, who did the broadcast for us on Saturday. And previous to this game, he says, Auburndale in the regionals against Marathon, not the sectionals, but in the regionals against Marathon, 3-0, now 4-0. So Auburndale has done the job at this level against Marathon, but obviously for Marathon, always the high expectations. They were the sectional champion a year ago, but again, it was a really great basketball game. Went right down to the wire, and in these kind of games, it's what you would expect.
Right, and it's what it should be. Those and for Marathon, a tough one, tie ball game gets tipped in, but for Auburndale, just finding ways to get it done.
Back to back.
They had a tough one with the OT Kobe game, and then they turn around and get a tight one there. And now they, it's about somewhat to a degree of these redemption shots. Now they're going to get Stratford in the sectional semi, and they didn't play well the last time against Stratford. So again, is Auburndale, one of these teams that's starting to get going too, as much as Stratford? I think that's going to be a war at West on Thursday night.
You're right. And Stratford, again, we talked about it, playing great basketball. Again, they faced number 3 seeded Hurley, but they made it look like Hurley was a number 13 seed, not a number 3 seed, because Stratford rolled 64-32. Caleb Wrench, 21. Riley Spindler, 12. You have to be really impressed with what Coach Schmidt and that team has done recently. I mean, they're not just winning. They're winning dominantly, and included in that game was against Auburndale the last time around, not too long ago.
Right.
And as you look at it, let's look at that game, Auburndale and Stratford. Again, neutral site now in the sectionals at Wausau West. It's going to be a massive crowd, obviously. But, based on the way the teams have played recently, you got to feel like Stratford comes in with at least maybe a half a step lead.
Yeah, well, and if you look at the marks of what the games were in the season, it was back on January 17th, Auburndale won by 4, and then on the 24th, the most recent meeting was when Stratford won by about 26. So those are things in the back of the mind where they split evenly, both teams looking to get that final mark on each other because you go to the next game. But Stratford I don't think Auburndale's counted out on anything. They're playing these tight ones and pulling them out, so that would worry me a little bit as a coach, that they're always going to be lingering. But, for Auburndale, Stratford's been in control. I mean, when you go to that regional final and you're winning by, 32 points, that's a big W there.
So that's D4. And by the way, I guess looking ahead, I got to say that Saturday, whoever it is, Auburndale, or I think it's going to be Stratford. I'm going to put myself out there a little bit. I think a Stratford-Bonduelle game would be a great game.
Yeah, I think I'm going to play because I know both coaches, so I'm just going to draw it right down like whatever Merrillwood team comes out of there, because these are wars, and sometimes you even, like you said, Auburndale's 4-0 against Marathon in their last couple meetings in the playoffs, and you just never know that conference time, and these teams know each other so well, and they're going to rely on what they have done well so far, and maybe a little wrinkle, maybe not, because I think they can outplay the other team. I think that's going to be a great sectional final game, no matter who it is, and hopefully it's Bonduelle too, because we want to see that matchup.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching that Stratford Auburndale game Thursday night. I mean, that'll be a fun one. Division 5, pretty good run for the Merrillwood North.
Yes,
I tell you, you look at Rib Lake, number 4 seed. First, they beat number 5 Flambeau, 76-68. Talon Scheidhauer, 29. Seth Borkart, 28. And bottom of the bracket for Prentice, defeated Owen Withy. Number 6 Prentice over number 3 Owen Withy, 68-59. Evan Lord, 29 for Prentice. And then on Saturday, Rib Lake, the number 4 seed, defeated number 1 seed Mellon easily. 71-50 was 32-30 Mellon at halftime. And then Rib Lake outscored them 37-16 in the second half. And so another big win for Rib Lake. And Prentice, number 6, beat number 2 Bayfield by a score of 60-53. So that means Rib Lake and Prentice coming up on Thursday night in Tomahawk. So we've talked all the time about how the Merrillwood South from time to time has to take a lot of bumps and bruises against the Merrillwood South. Well, the Merrillwood North is it looks like they're gaining from those experiences.
Well, that puts Rib Lake with that last victory at 20 wins, which is a good season. So I think both teams are playing well. They've taken some hits from some of the southern teams, but they've played through it and beat some of them as well. And I think for Rib Lake, just a strong performance down the stretch. They get by Flambeau in that I think they were the number 4 seed. Rib Lake was
Right.
beating Flambeau,
Number 5.
and then that's sometimes a tough matchup in that 4-5 matchup, and then they turn around and take down the number 1 seed in the second half, which with much sense of ease at that point. Henderson for them is an outstanding scorer. He has about 17 a game. For Prentice, the Owen Withy win's a good one over there. I mean, all their games are coming on the road, so I don't think Prentice cares where they play.
That's a trek from Prentice to Owen Withy.
Yep, and so they had 2 nice victories there.
And Bayfield.
Up to Bayfield, and now they're going to come back in their area, and they're just going over to Tomahawk. But they
split.
They
during the
split,
regular
lost.
season.
One game was by 3, and the other was by 5.
They both won on the road.
Yep.
On the road.
So I think it's kind of an interesting place to meet, just like Auburndale Stratford. Interesting place to meet one of your conference opponents, and for those 2 schools, they co-opt in a lot of things over the years.
That's right.
I think it's just an interesting matchup, and props to them for making some tough wins down the stretch to get there as a little bit higher seed.
And the CWC East will have a sectional semifinal. I should say the CWC South will have a sectional semifinal matchup between Almond, Bancroft, and Pacelli. Pacelli beat Tigerton, and Almond beat Wabeno. And we usually don't talk about that conference, but I found it very interesting because Pacelli's had really good teams over the years. They were a game behind Almond during the regular season. They lost twice during the regular season. So, again, I think that would be an interesting game at Wisconsin Rapids Lincoln in D5.
Especially since you have a little maybe differences in styles. Almond Bancroft's a big team, physical, power. They got the center back in Phillips, who was an all-state player last year. And then Pacelli has the coach's kid, who's an exceptional athlete for him.
Shirk.
Yep. And
Man, he had in the last game against Tigerton, had 30 points and 14 rebounds.
Which is a good number against Tigerton, too. I mean, they handled Tigerton as the number 1 seed, did a nice job as the number 2 seed. Pacelli went right by him. And so I think for Pacelli, that those contrasts and styles will be interesting to see how that makeup is, especially when they've seen each other twice in their conference play.
And real quick, we should mention that Northland Lutheran was in a game on Friday in that bracket, falling to Tigerton again. That was their Achilles heel this year. Yep. By a score of 58-42. And James Brady, I wanted to mention for Tigerton, 36 points and 19 rebounds. That's filling up the stat sheet. So.
Tigerton, conference champions again for the second year in a row, and a good record. Tough opponent for Northern Lutheran this year.
And Assumption lost to Columbus in the regional semis on Friday by a score of 60-43. JT Schlafer had 12 for the Royals. Matt Kaniski had 20 for the Dons, and then Columbus beat Alma Center Lincoln 50-40. So your buddy Joe is back in the sectionals.
And you got to give him credit for what they lost from that state title team with those, 3 conference players of the year, as well as some guys that got all state recognition on the D5 championship team. To be back in the saddle with that, they're doing really well. I saw a little bit of the Assumption game, and they were in control. I mean, they were moving the pace, playing the defense they wanted to do, and Coach Joe's doing a nice job with them.
Girls sectionals last week, Division One Valley team was involved. Stevens Point, number 2 seed. They took on number 6 seeded Appleton East at DC Everest on Thursday night, and it was a classic game, a great game. Appleton East pulled it out in overtime, 75-72. Jada Seibert had 36 points for the Panthers. Ella Sweeney, 23. But you sent me a note as Madison saying, you got to watch the end of that game.
It was worth it.
It was.
I mean, for Appleton East comes out of the timeout. There's 17 seconds left on the clock. They don't seem to get a good look.
They don't get a good look.
And whatever play is, even the coach said afterwards, whatever play we ran just kind of fell apart. And that's when you just got to make a play. And she did. She fired it right from the volleyball line out towards half court. And it was a pure bank. Nothing. I don't know if it was called, but it went in. And unfortunately, that's the hard part to lose that one. As exciting as in for the team that wins that one.
So and then Appleton's number 6 seed defeated number 1 seed Eau Claire Memorial. So
you wonder what
you see one of those number 6 seeds make it all the way to the state.
Yeah, they were. That one was surprising to me because of
they won in double overtime.
Yeah,
so they won in overtime in the sectional semis and double overtime in the sectional final. I mean, you talk about a glorious run that they'll never forget.
No, and then the next thing you know is you're down at the Kohl Center and it's all gravy down there. So it's a couple of big wins in OT.
They go to Resch.
Right. Oh, sorry, the Red Center. My bad.
Division 2, Lakeland. They lost in the sectional semifinal to Rice Lake, 59-47. Christina Wamet to finish her outstanding high school career. with 24 points and 8 rebounds. Ava Evenhouse 11. Saylor Timmerman 13 rebounds. The thing about what I thought about when I saw that result is it just shows how hard it is to get to state.
Yep.
I mean, you have the talent of Christina Ouimet been knocking on that door. Did get there one time a couple of years ago, but still hard to do it. Hard to get there.
Well, I guess it also shows any younger players that, you better enjoy the time if you do get there. And if it's how hard it is to get back. You got to make the most of that. And obviously she was an outstanding player up there at Lakeland. They had a talented cast around her and finished 22-5. So overall, good one, tough one to lose. Rice Lake was the number 1 seed though in that bracket.
Division III, we've been following Wittenberg-Burnhamwood all season long as they just kept winning and winning and winning. Thursday night in the sectional semifinal, the Chargers beat Freedom by a score of 56-39. Rory Salveson had 18, Milena Granquist 15, Faith Resch 11. So then it was a rematch of a sectional final from a year ago against Appleton Xavier, and again, almost by the same margin as a year ago. Appleton Xavier beat Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, handed the Chargers their first loss after 27 straight wins, 63-45. Granquist had 15 points, 12 rebounds, Salveson 9. We've been talking about it. You either, one way or the other, you either finish the glorious, perfect season or you end with your first loss of the season. And obviously, Xavier just really good. Whitburn's tired of seeing them in a sectional final.
Yeah, just a tough one that is back-to-back years. But at the end of the day, I think you have things to celebrate and the accomplishments that these kids had. The conference championship where they went 14-0. 27-1 is a very nice record. I have a lot of teams would be jealous of that, want to have that at the end of the season. And they had a lot of prolific scorers on that team that didn't. And I think they still have some things back because there's other girls showing up in the box score right behind the young ladies that put up all the points this year.
Division 5, Assumption makes it to state in that big rematch against Pacelli in the sectional semifinals last Thursday. The only team that had beaten Assumption this year, Pacelli. This time Assumption won 63-43. Jordan Jaglinski had 21 points for the Royals. Addie Vollert had 18 for Assumption. And then they played Sevastopol in the sectional final, and Assumption won 61-42. Balanced scoring, Sarah Shaw 15, Jaglinski 14, Vollert 12, and Anna Schooley 11. And so Assumption moves on to state. And again, there was a certain pressure on them because I think that was expected pretty much from the start.
Right, and they owned it. They got the number 1 seed on that. They'll be challenged by Owen Withey. And I think Assumption, again, perfect record in conference. Only the 1 loss, Pacelli. Sometimes that's hard to do the next time because you feel that team might, or you hear that team might have your number. You don't want any of that to sink in. And there was a point in the game where it just seemed like Pacelli could never get close enough, and the score kept separating from what I saw. So they had a nice win against Pacelli in that sectional semi.
And Rib Lake lost to Owen Withey in D5 by a score of 49-39 to end Rib Lake's season. And Owen Withey went on to state after they beat Eau Claire Emmanuel Lutheran. So Owen Withey and Assumption will actually be facing off in a state semifinal on Friday morning. And Owen Withey, I remember when they beat Newman in an upset when Newman was going for 3 in a row.
Yep.
And Owen Withey always seems to have a really good girls basketball program. So Assumption goes in as the favorite, but wouldn't put it past Owen Withey.
Well, just little things I looked up. They were second in that conference. I can't remember. I didn't write it down. I can't remember who was first in that conference, but they were second in the conference at 11-3 mark. Neilsville was, I think, was undefeated in their conference, and they were 25-4 overall. So it's not like you're getting a good team in there, and sometimes they seed these teams, but sometimes those aren't as accurate as they can. So we'll see if Assumption can hold true to what they want to accomplish, but I think they'll get a good opponent in Owen Withey.
And real quickly here, with the girls' state basketball tournament Thursday through Saturday at the Resch, you look at D1, again, the eastern part of the state with Kimberly and Appleton East, and then you have the southern part of the state with Arrowhead and Muskego. Division 2, Edgewood takes on Rice Lake, Wauwatosa East against West De Pere. Division 3, Elk Mound against Xavier, and Oostburg against Laconia. Division 4, the Prairie School against Cuba City, St. Mary Catholic against Durand, Arkansas, and Division 5, Assumption versus Owen Withey, Oshkosh Lords against Barneveld. When you look at it, not really a big Central Wisconsin contingent.
No, not this year. One of the things I find interesting about how, a couple of teams we've talked about that have knocked out some of the better teams in our area. They are all number 4 teams.
Yes.
Like if you look at the D1
Rice
team,
Lake.
Appleton East, Rice Lake, and D2, and
Xavier.
Xavier and D, they all got the number 4 seed. So when you were talking before how hard it is to get back there, how difficult it is to make the state even when you have a great season, here's proof in that it's a long road. These teams that get there should be celebrated. The teams that almost get there for the job they've done during the season should also be celebrated.
And no undefeated teams. 5 teams have 1 loss, but none undefeated. So should be a very interesting state girls basketball tournament. Hockey, that's where I spent my weekend, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Bob Suter's Legacy 20 Arena in Middleton. The girls' state tournament started on Thursday night. And I got to tell you, that Central Wisconsin Storm game against the Eau Claire area Stars was a surprise because the Storm went in, I think, significant favorites. They were in control. They outshot them 60-11, I think. And they were up 3-1 late in the third, but then twice Eau Claire scored, and they had a breakaway in the final minute. A breakaway, a chance to pull off the biggest comeback I think I would have ever seen. It would have been just an amazing comeback. But Cammie Flora, the Storm goalie, was able to get the big save, went to overtime, and then the Storm were able to win it on a Mara Meverton goal in OT 4-3. But it shows again why we can sit here and talk about matchups. You get out there, anything can happen. And it was like all of a sudden there's this breakaway going on. I'm thinking, holy cow, they're going to lose this game. And when they had it in the bag, again, it was just amazing stuff.
And that's the nostalgia of high school's athletics is they're just high school kids. They think and act and work as they should, and sometimes there's those pressure-packed moments and upsets that can happen.
And then the Storm in the championship game ran into a buzzsaw. The Bay Area Ice Bears, who've been the number 1 ranked team all year, they never lost to a Wisconsin team all year. And the Ice Bears defeated the Storm 8-0. It was just a game where it just kind of piled on. I mean, Bay Area was able to finish exceptionally well. Faye Brunke had 4 goals in the game for Bay Area. But the Storm, and again, I said this on the air on Saturday, the group of seniors that graduated, he had 2 state championships and a state runner-up. That ain't too bad.
No, not at all. That's something, tradition and legacy and stuff that they'll cherish for the rest of their lives in the remembrance of those state championships that they had.
So another great season for the Central Wisconsin Storm. On the boys' side, Division II, give a shout-out to our friends to the north, Tomahawk. Tomahawk defeated McFarland in the semifinals 3-2. Then they faced Amory in the championship round. Amory had defeated Somerset by a score of 4-2, and Tomahawk beat Amory 5-3 to earn the first state championship for the Tomahawk Hatchets in ice hockey in D2. Division I, in the first, I was down there for this on Friday. Edgewood and Brookfield, and it was such a wonderful environment. The place was standing room only. It was a packed house, and they went triple overtime, and Edgewood, the number 4 seed, beat the number 1 seed Brookfield. You could put a blanket over the 4 teams in D1. I mean, it could have been 4-1. Any of those numbers, they were so evenly matched. But Edgewood defeated Brookfield 5-4. And then our game, Wausau West and Notre Dame Academy, Warriors that beat Notre Dame 2-1 earlier in the year. Low-scoring affair. This one was not a low-scoring affair, as Notre Dame took a 5-1 lead. The Warriors came back in the second period, made it 5-4, but then Notre Dame went on to win 8-4. It was a tough day for the Warriors. I mean, it just was one of those days where sometimes you have it, some days you don't. They played so well in the sectional final. This one was not quite at that level, but for West, it was a terrific season. They had made it back to state for the first time in 6 years, and just would have wanted a little more on Friday. And then Edgewood defeated Notre Dame in the championship round by a score of 5-2. But it was a fun state hockey tournament as well, and it was great to see both the Storm and the Warriors make it. Made it fun for me.
Right. Well, and I think the big thing is, obviously keeping that fun aspect, but being able to get down there. I think just to say you made it. I know it's not always, you want to say you're a runner-up or you want to say you're the state champion, and not every team is able to do that all the time, but to get down there, you're the final of 4 teams out of, I remember when it was Division 5, if you made it, you'd feel good in the sectional sometimes.
Right.
You're the final 8 out of 128. So I don't know how many are at the D1 level, but if it's over 100 and being one of the final
57.
yeah. But still, a lot tougher road to get there.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that's a big deal to say you were a part of that.
And State is the cake. Winning at State is the icing.
Yes.
So you got the cake. That's the thing.
And it's easier said than done. A lot of things have to fall into place. It'd be interesting to see all the consistency when you take the teams that are down there. What's their youth program like? What's the participation rate? You know, how consistent? Do you have a consistent coach that's been there for 20 years, or somebody that's only been, you know? There's different makeups, and I don't know if there ever is really one recipe, because people find different ways to get down there on that journey, and I think that's the cool part about it. Is it's not all the same way, and there is no one set formula for it.
We got a little more than 2 minutes to go. What's on your mind?
Just, I guess, looking forward to some of Thursday's games. Being a selfish old Merrillwood South coach from years ago, I tried to get my son and his buddies to see what we want to go watch at the West Gym that night. I said, let's go check this one out between Auburndale and Stratford. I think that's going to be a fun one. I'm looking forward to see. I'd like to, I want to see East punch through that game and get to the next one. Just hearing Charlie's excitement in it and see how they are able to finish out. Will they get to create that dream and get to that Kohl Center, or you're not going to quite make it, and reality sets in that careers are done. So, a lot of things I want to see how they play in the next two games that they would have. And then for Marshfield, I think that's another team that's just they're dangerous with their balanced attack. They have a lot of play between. What do you defend there? There's there's the guard play and the different big guys. How about for yourself?
No, I agree. I mean, I just think that watching those sectionals, but also I'm looking forward to seeing what happens at the girls' state tournament.
Right.
I always just it's Thursday's always hard because you want to watch the state games, but also want to go out. And I'm thinking, because I so rarely go to a game just to watch.
Yeah.
But I was thinking on being at West on Thursday night, that might be worth it to experience it all. Maybe they'll let me sneak into my perch up high. I don't know.
Either way, you should get in for free. After all,
no, I will pay for it.
I don't know.
No. I will.
I'm just kidding.
I will pay for it unless Foster lets me in. But no, it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. This is the time of year because of these crossover. The girls and the boys are going at the same time, and the next week that's not happening. So I think a lot of good things to see, to check out if you're a spectator.
We got 30 seconds. Which of our area boys teams makes it to state? You are going to pick the.
I can't pick
Auburndale.
the Merrillwood one.
I know. Do you think he's going to make it?
I hope so. I'm going to say I hope so that one makes it. It's still a tough road. You got that punching through that sectional final game. These games get harder and tighter each time.
We are going to talk about, again, getting 8 teams back at Division I before this season ends on this program, because I think Central Wisconsin is being left out because of this. But we'll be back next week.
Can't wait.